and our area plans, of which we have 15 different ones here in the county. Ultimately, these policies may reflect a desire for different building styles and patterns in extreme, high, and moderate risk areas to reflect the different types of wildfire hazards that would exist, let's say, in a sagebrush complex versus the areas around Lake Tahoe with the alpine type environment. Infrastructure policies are an important part of our master planning here, and sometimes wildfire risk throws a little bit of a curveball at us because of the need for higher levels of water service, let's say, in the urban interface area to provide adequate fire protection, or alternately we're looking at sprinklering of buildings as a protective measure. Response time policies are very important. We're just getting into characterizing those for the county, and obviously that brings with it the potential for the need for additional fire stations and other facilities. Defensible space policies, our previous presenters talked a little bit about, and the real challenge here is not establishing adequate defensible space at the time of subdivision development or building permit, but really maintenance of that fuel load over a period of time. There may be, in instances, areas of such high risk that one might wish to even consider outlining no-build areas, but of course that has its own set of complex legal and planning implications to it. Eventually, what we're hoping to do here by building these policies in at a high level in our comprehensive plan and master plan is cascade those policies down to changes in our subdivision development code and the building code. Kurt, why don't you talk a little bit about the WUI code and the ways that we're gradually implementing that.
Absolutely, and I want to kind of not back up the slide, but tag on to something that Adrian mentioned during the planning phase. Many of us are now starting to grapple with the challenges of planned open space. And it is possible as you're developing your planning process and planning out your communities that you end up creating wild and urban interface islands within the internal areas of a suburban area. Please don't don't take that lightly, because as we move through these, not only in those urban islands or suburban islands, but also in the interface, as we plan for that open space, which everybody likes, you have to plan for the maintenance of the open space, and this rolls right into the WUI code. This is not a one-size-fits-all code, and we strongly encourage the planners and the fire agencies to get together with the building department as you take a look at adopting either the entire code or pieces of the code. And as you'll see within your slide there, special attention being paid to chapters 4 and 5. Chapters 4 is your water supply, and the reality of water supply in the wild and urban interface is we don't have it in some areas. We don't have the necessary fire flows. So as you look at your planning process and the ability to plan for infrastructure, you really need to get with your fire agencies and see what they're going to do with Chapter 4. Are they going to waive some of the requirements? Are there additional options that are available that can be built in to the planned unit development or to the neighborhood? And Chapter 5, here in Washoe County, we've made a decision amongst the fire agencies that we are going to delegate Chapter 5 to our building departments. Chapter 5 is the actual section that drives the construction requirements within the wild and urban interface. It's extremely important that as we plan these developments that we all collaborate on not these chapters but throughout the document, because as Adrian noted, you may have some no-build areas, and those areas are going to be dependent on water supply, access, and proximity to the wildland. Adrian?
To elaborate a little bit on some of the things that Kurt mentioned, access, water supply, and protection plan, pay special attention to, as planners out there, minimum standards for driveways, for example. In the WUI, we'll talk about driveway widths, lengths, and the need for turnaround. Also, in terms of access, very important, obviously, that you have, in most cases, more than one point of entry and exit from a development, and that has been a standard here for years, but we still grapple with it. Also, as planners, we're very often dealing with roadway widths, and we end up having tussles with our fire partners where planners want narrow roadways and minimize environmental degradation, and of course our fire partners want full access for large equipment. So we end up having some interesting discussions on that front. And again, as I mentioned, in terms of water supply, very often we're dealing with inadequate infrastructure in the wildland-urban interface, and that gets us into issues of sprinklering, or it makes us take another look at our infrastructure planning to see if there's a better way to provide adequate water supply to those areas. Kurt, anything you want to add to that one?
Nope, just the key to this is sitting down early in the planning process, and Adrian really hit on a key there. The access roads are always a challenge. There are ways of negotiating changes. However, get with your fire folks early.
Section 405 of the WUI is dealing with fire protection plan, and I just wanted to highlight a couple of issues here, move through this quickly. It's really important on each and every development proposal that we have in front of us to do a site-specific assessment. It can certainly be at subdivision, building permit, or site plan. Location, topography, vegetative complex, all very, very important. And again, we've talked about building ignition and defensible space and fuels management. We want to touch real quickly on construction fire safety. We're embedding a standard condition now into all of our projects on construction fire safety. We've had some major fires, one of which you see here on the slide, caused by construction incidents, whether that be a dozer blade striking rock, people fabricating plumbing. We've had a whole series of problems with this, and it's a real important point to hit. I'm sure Kurt would quickly like to add something to that.
Absolutely. I believe that this is evolving into one of the more pre-development specific requirements that needs very, very close attention. What we're finding is our developers and our contractors, as astute as they are, don't watch the relative humidities, don't watch the red flag warnings. And unless you have something on the condition that has a plan, that requires training, that makes those resources available to the incoming firefighters, then basically you're going to be chasing the fire the way we did on the Hawken. And there, Chapter 14, as well as Chapter 14 in the International Fire Code, as well as Section 405 in the Wildland Interface Code, will walk you right into getting those requirements taken care of.
And Kurt's briefly covered the International Fire Code here. That's the primary code for all localities and states. Useful to use the latest version and update if possible. Construction fire safety, Chapter 14 is a very useful source, I think, for the kinds of issues you're going to face and also the kinds of conditions that you need to place, whether you're inside or outside of the wildland-urban interface. Again, the WUI code provisions, Chapter 5, 6, Appendices A through G. I'll let you just briefly look at those. These are important points, again, as we move forward, particularly with project-level review of plans and projects. And then lastly here, we're doing a nuisance ordinance, and you can certainly tie some of these issues, particularly vegetative management, into your nuisance ordinances to provide more teeth to deal with excessive fuel loads. Kurt, anything on that one?
Nope. The key to success here is buy-in from the community and interaction early. If there's any questions or if anyone would like to email Adrian or I, we'd be more than happy to share some of the conditions we're placing on construction and have further dialogue.
Very good. Thanks all for listening. James, I guess we'll turn this back to you.
Great. Thank you, gentlemen. That was very informative. Now we are going to begin a question and answer period. We have got, if you have questions for our presenters, please type them into the questions box on the right, and again, I'll ask them aloud. I did want to say that there was a question pertaining to the extension website. The URL for that is www.extension.org/wildfire. But again, that link is available on the NACO Wildfire Information Clearinghouse. All right, the first question that came in, I think it might have been for Carol, or maybe Brenda too. Are any insurance companies using incentives or reductions in fees to encourage defensible space and firewatch principles?
Brenda, would that be more me?
I think so, yes.
The public policy questions. You know, this is also a question we always get. Are they actually giving discounts or incentives for doing mitigation? And frankly, as I spoke to, it is much more of a stick than a carrot. First of all, as some of the last folks pointed out, is these mitigation steps have to be maintained. So they can thin trees, but they're going to have to thin them on an ongoing basis. And they're going to have to continue to keep them up, unlike a sprinkler system that you would put in or get a discount for that. Also, quite frankly, these people are still living in higher risk areas. So I think really the direction that the insurance companies have taken is we expect you to do the mitigation, and the incentive really is to keep affordable insurance. You can still get the insurance. It's still affordable as long as you're willing to take the mitigation steps. So insurance companies at this point aren't offering actually any discounts. And quite frankly, politically, that would be difficult as well because you know, people living in a more metro, less fire-prone area may be pretty upset if somebody got a discount for living in a higher risk wildfire area because they did mitigation. So I really think the incentive at this point is to do the mitigation to keep the insurance. It's much more of an availability rather than affordability issue. Brenda, do you have anything to add to that?
I think you hit the nail on the head. The one thing I would say is that you know, each individual insurer makes its own business decisions. We always have to throw that in. You know, so it's not an industry-wide practice one way or the other.
Okay. All right, thank you. This question, I think, goes to Washoe County, folks, since Washoe County is mentioned in it. There are general maps available that would delineate the WUI boundary within local jurisdictions, especially in Washoe County, Nevada.
Kurt, I think you might want to talk a little bit about how we went about compiling that map.
Very good. The original map was developed as a result of the CWPP process, which RCI, as a local state contractor, came in, did an analysis of all of our communities in the interface, and set the risk rating using a check sheet very, very similar to the one that's in the back of the International Wildland Urban Interface Code. That was done about 2004. We've since had fuel type changes and additional construction. So every year now we convene a panel of technical experts, including our Living with Fire people, our Fire Safe Council representatives, our federal partners and our state partners, and the fire agencies in the county, and our planners and builders, and we sit down and review those areas for changes such as roadways, addition of water. Have we had any additional fires in the area that have affected a fuels type change? And we had additional development, and that's how we evaluate that map every